redefine pro-aging as aging out loud, as owning this time in life, as not letting others say to you that you should be over. Pro-aging is about recognizing that aging is living. Aging is a privilege. Waking up and opening your eyes every morning is a blessing. And so to me, pro-aging means to own this time in life and don't shy away from the value that your age brings.
Welcome to the GenX Shift podcast, a show for Gen Xers who are navigating some pretty tough transitions and aren't sure how to move forward. I'm your host, Michelle Walter, proud Gen Xer, former lawyer turned entrepreneur, huge Jason Momoa fan, and margarita snob. And I've navigated a lot of transitions in my life, from losing my mom suddenly to a heart attack to starting my own business. But I often did it all on my own because I was too stubborn to ask for help. Now I'm on a mission to give actionable strategies to other Gen Xers so that they can find the confidence, courage, and clarity they need to make a shift. So let's rock and roll. Welcome back, Gen Xers, to Season 2 of the Gen X Shift. I'm so excited to have you along for this ride. We are coming in hot at the very beginning of this season. Today, in episode 1 of Season 2, I have my friend and inspiring badass entrepreneur, Barbara Brooks. Barbara is a pro-aging activist. And what the hell does that mean? Well, we talk about that in the episode. She is the creator, co-founder, owner of SecondActWomen, as well as another company, Barbara Brooks Speaks. And we get into how her journey allowed her to see that women 40 and over can bloom again. Oftentimes, when we reach a certain age, because of societal messaging and conditioning that we receive, we think we're done. I'm 45, I can't start a business, or like me, 49 in my case, and start a business and quit your stable federal government job. We think, what do I have to offer? I'm just a mom, or I'm just a so-and-so. And the seeds that Barbara plants for us are to know that we have so much to offer, that we cannot forget our voices, the life experience, in addition to the professional experience that we have gained over the last couple of decades, and what we bring to the table as women over 40. So we talk about her journey growing up Gen X. It's a fabulous walk down memory lane. She had so many good memories, things that I didn't even remember, like fashion plates. Did you play with fashion plates? It's an inspiring, entertaining journey through Gen X land and into entrepreneurship, as well as to embracing what it means to be pro-aging, to really celebrate the fact that it is a privilege, as Barbara says, to grow older. I celebrate my birthday every year because I consider it a gift to have made another trip around the sun. And I think we really want to take Barbara's invitation and the work that she's doing through SecondActWomen to embrace this next chapter of our life. As she says, it's our opportunity to bloom again. We didn't just bloom once. We are perennial bloomers. And we can really step into a new power, a new voice, a new chapter of our lives. And her work through SecondActWomen shows us how to do that. So I am linking all of her resources in the show notes, including the link to the PBS special that she was on called Humanize Colorado, Women in the Workforce. It's 25 minutes. It's so worth your time to watch. So make sure to check out all the show notes because there's a wealth of information in there this week. And enjoy this conversation with Barbara Brooks. And I'll catch you on the other side. Well, thanks so much, Barbara, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you spending the time with us this morning.
Well, I'm excited about it. Yeah. Anything Gen X, I'm down.
I know. We're down for it. We're going to hop right into it because we have some time constraints today, which is totally great. That just means we're going to do probably a little more interview style than I would typically do as a conversation for the podcast. But I want to jump right in and let folks know, of course, how we know each other. And I think I was doing the math this morning. I think we first met about 7 years ago through our mutual friends, Rod and Gina. There was some time that lapsed until we saw each other again. And so it was a few months ago that we all got together for dinner again and had just such a great conversation, a lot of it around politics and business stuff and all the
Yes.
things. And so
All the
since then, you
things.
and I have really been communicating on more of a regular basis. And I've just appreciated getting to know you better.
Yeah, I feel like it's transitioning into a friendship because there are quite a few similarities that we share.
Yeah.
I won't go into some of the similarities. It might be evident to others with what's going on in the world, but yes, we share quite a few similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about some of those today. So let's get into it because you, as I said in the intro that you didn't hear, you're a pro aging activist and you have been focusing on empowering women over 40 to, I think, fire themselves up, be age positive, and you have a lot of important work that you're doing. So I want to jump into that today. But before we do that, I want to have you rewind the tape a little bit and take us back to what it was like for you as a Gen Xer growing up in late 60s and 70s and how that eventually set you up to be doing the kind of work that you're doing now around pro aging.
You know, my growing up has nothing really to do with where I am today. Well, no, I guess it does because I'm a Gen Xer. Because the trajectory into what I do now is not what I went to college for and had done in my adult life. But I was born in so I'm 58, and so I was born in to military parents who are from Texas, but raised my brother and I, Keith, here in Colorado Springs, where they or actually I'm in Denver, but my hometown is Colorado Springs. But I was born abroad. My brother and I were both born in really cool places. So I was born in Orléans, France, and Keith was born in Vicenza, Italy. My dad is former military, as I said. He retired. So did my mom from the Navy Reserve, but also my mom was in civil service for I think almost 30 years as well. So my Gen X life was filled with recording songs on my huge stereo system that I got at a pawn shop of all places. My mom thought, if you really are into music, I think we can get you one of those big, because she was a single mother trying to make her way through and keep the house and all the things. So we got, yeah. My Gen X life is really all about riding our bikes around the neighborhood, exploring places of our neighborhood that we didn't know existed until we, ride our bikes as far as we can go. It was shopping the blue light special at Kmart. It was boombox on my shoulder or listening to another friend's boombox on their shoulder with Let It Whip and all the jazz band and all the jams in my junior high school years. And then we graduated to non-boomboxes by high school. I don't know what we were jamming to. Probably still had boomboxes, but we weren't carrying them on our shoulders by then. Too cool to do that. It was filled with obviously leg warmers and all the fabulous fashion that we had. And I've always been into fashion and makeup. I should say makeup when I was allowed to wear it, because I do come from a strict Christian mother. Not strict Christian mother like you would think, but I mean, I wasn't allowed to wear full on makeup to my high school years. So before that, it was obviously lip gloss, lots of lip gloss, lip smackers.
Lip smack.
Yeah, combs in our back pocket with swirls. So yeah, I didn't go into the Jerry curl phase of things. So if you're listening, I'm black, but if you're watching, you can see that. Never dipped into the old Jerry curl pool, but I did have braids one summer with the beads, and it just wasn't my jam.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a little bit of my, I guess, of my Gen X background or upbringing, I should say.
That was an awesome trip down memory lane. Whenever I hear Jerry Curl, I think of oh, his name just left my head. The
Rick
doctor from
James.
ER. No, well that too, but Eric LaSalle, and he was in Coming to
Oh yeah.
America. Remember? And he
Yes, because all of us black folks completely understood where he was, where when he lifted his head up, there were, yes, yes, yes. And they
That's awesome.
exaggerated it in, obviously on purpose, in Coming to America. Yes.
Well, and it's what I find cool is that we grew up in pretty different places, and yet our experiences were pretty similar, riding the bikes, the leg warmers, the music, especially growing up. So I think that's one of the things I appreciate about getting to do this podcast is finding those common threads among our generation.
Well, and I
And
feel like we had and I promise you, I'm not just saying this because I am a Gen Xer, but because I love music, even to this day, I still listen to every kind of music. It's not as if I got to a certain age and I suddenly stopped listening to Post Malone or hip hop or alternative music or electronic music. No, I'm 58 and I'm still listening to all that. The only difference is it's expanded. So now I've added smooth jazz to the repertoire. I feel like because I know and love music and have loved music for so long in all genres, practically, including country, because I was raised on country music. I told you my parents were from Texas. Is I do feel like the 80s. I feel like Gen X had the best music. I feel like 80s and 90s music, we really did have the best music. Because as I'm listening to it, as I was building a playlist for my annual BizLifeCon conference, we're really going to feature 70s, 80s, 90s, and today music. And as I was listening and added to the Spotify list, I was reminded we really did have the best music, from the Eurythmics to Yaz to Sade to Howard Jones to Ready for the World, Lisa and the Cult Jam, Rick James. I could just Prince, all of it.
mhm, mhm.
I mean, I really truly believe we had the best music. And still, it's still. I was listening to the Psychedelic Furs that came on my station just the other day when I was rolling down the street. Like, oh my God.
Have I shared with you my Gen X Soul playlist on Spotify?
No, but I bet it crosses over the multiple Spotify lists that I have. I
It
love the link.
I have spent a lot of time and care curating that playlist. It is now 35 hours, 36 hours of music. So I'll share the link with you.
You need to share the link.
I take a lot of pride in that. And I 100% agree because just this morning there's an elementary school behind my house, or I think it's a middle school actually. And you know that there's Gen X teachers at that school because every morning before school starts and at recess in the afternoon, they are playing 80s music. So I'm like, those are Gen X teachers and they are raising those kids on our music and because it is the best music ever.
It's the
Yes.
best. Bon Jovi, Journey. I mean, and the thing is, I feel like a lot of us back then, maybe it's just me, but I feel like we were listening to it all. I mean, I know that we had back then, at least in high school, we had the heads who were listening to the headbanger music. You had the preppies. I crossed between the preppies and the fashion, but
Yeah.
except for I wasn't a head. No way. Don't
You
smoke
weren't a
weed. Didn't
headbanger?
smoke weed.
What?
But I feel like we, at least a group of my high school group, we crossed over. Our music crossed a lot. I mean, because we were listening to anything from alternative music to the R&B.
I think that says a lot about our generation just in general and kind of zooming out a little bit is that I think growing up, we were a generation that was very good at being open to not just a lot of different music, but a lot of different experiences, different people, no matter where we grew up. And I think we've lost some of that clearly
Yes.
because of the state of where things are as we've
Yes.
gotten older because of messages that we've received. And I get the impression from you, though, that you were raised and how you grew up, and especially coming from a military background, that you were exposed to a lot of different things that I imagine really contributed to resilience throughout your life.
No doubt. No question. I have memories of going, not just take your daughter to work day, but because sadly I was one of those kids that was in and out of the hospital with my asthma, and my mother actually worked at the hospital as a manager of what was called patient appointment system. So when the GIs, their wives and their husbands, because obviously female GIs, male GIs, and today they GIs, government issues for those that don't know what a
Yes.
GI actually is. When they need to book an appointment at the hospital at Evans Community Hospital, they called into my mom's department to book their medical appointments at any one of the departments all throughout the hospital. So because I was a kid in and out, whether I had to stay a night or two at the hospital, after being rushed there with my asthma or just going in for a doctor's appointment. I was always in and out of my mom's office. And I was exposed to seeing what it was like to be a boss, to be a Black, woman leading a department in the 70s. So I was exposed to that and seeing what my mom did and how respected she was for her job, to also being exposed to the military, just going on post. And to me, going on post and seeing tanks roaming around and seeing GIs in formation is nothing. Whereas I think, for others that would probably experience that for the first time would find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
To also being raised by, as I said, my parents were married for 18 years, but then they got a divorce. My mother had enough of my dad's cheating ways, and they got a divorce when I was in the 4th grade. So I was also exposed to being one of the only kids who was being raised in my neighborhood by a single parent who did everything she can and she did to hang on to our childhood home, which she held on to until her stroke in 2023. So we had it for 50 years. And, we moved her up here to Denver after that and sold it. But so there's that. There's the exposure in my high school, elementary, all the way up to a variety of kids, military kids and non-military kids. And I'm talking of all flavors, all backgrounds, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. I was exposed to a lot. And then also because I am Black, to the things that makes me who I am as a Black woman today, with my childhood and going back home to Houston and being exposed to all Black neighborhoods only, whereas that's not where I was raised. So lots of things have made up who I am today. There's no doubt in the
See, and you
exposure.
doubted at the beginning of that question. You were like, I don't know if how I grew up had any influence on what I do today. And there's a couple things that
So
I want
true.
to, I know, like as soon as we start to pull the thread a little bit, we
Yes, it's
see.
like an
Yeah.
onion from,
Yes.
it's like that blooming onion.
Yes, exactly. And I want to pull on a couple of those threads because I think there's some key things, at least how I see them, that may have influenced or that play into the work that you're doing today. Being raised by a single mom, seeing your mom be a powerful woman in management, a Black woman in the 70s, which was huge.
Huge.
And I find it no coincidence, and I don't know if you've thought about this, not only all of that, but knowing you, knowing your energy, how you move in the world, it's not surprising to me that you are now an entrepreneur, but you weren't always an entrepreneur. I've heard you say that you sort of became an accidental entrepreneur. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to entrepreneurship and maybe how some of these things like seeing your mom be a single mom, how that's impacted you and your work around pro aging and solo aging today?
Yeah. So, yes, interesting enough, I come from what's called the shopping center world. There is a such thing as having people like me who oversee shopping centers. It makes sense, but I was a part of a management team at several shopping centers across the United States where I served as director of marketing and business development. And so my last property was back here in Colorado at Park Meadows Retail Resort. But prior to that, I was working for a global company called Simon Property Group. And I've also worked for a couple of other companies, but I worked for Simon twice. And I was at Fashion Show Mall in Las Vegas. I was in Salt Lake City. I graduated to the larger properties, by the way. So I started as an assistant marketing director in San Antonio and then moved to Longview, Texas, where I had my own property, my own mall, Longview Mall, and then moved across the country 6 times before I ended up back here in Colorado. And the funny thing is, when I was in Vegas, Bellagio was just being built. It was just opening, actually, the year that I was there. And I remember thinking, I was done with moving. I was ready to come back home. And I just knew that I would end up back here at a property, didn't know what property, but it would be a large property, shopping center, and that I would be back in Denver, not Colorado Springs. And so I remember sitting in Vegas going, I want to be at that new property in Colorado, and I hope to be at Park Meadows someday. And sure enough, I did. But then I also dipped in radio and TV. So when I came back home to Colorado, it was 99 after spending most of the 90s living across. Came back home, lived with my mom for 2 years. I was that person because I didn't know what I want. I was stuck. I didn't know then what I wanted to do. So even though I sat in Vegas and said, I want to be at that property, I was burned out. By the time I had said that, I was actually starting to burn out on the industry. So I came back, got into radio, moved up to Denver, became a sales rep for one of the largest, well, the largest radio station at the time called KS 1075. And then was at several big radio and TV stations actually doing that as a senior sales consultant in radio and TV. And then I went back in the mall industry. I went to Town Center at Aurora, which is formerly Aurora Mall, which sadly is where the shootings happened. And I wasn't there at the time. I actually just left the property a year before the massacre happened at the theaters. And then I ended up at Park Meadows. I ended up at my dream property at Park Meadows. And then that job went away. That position went away. And I became in 2011, I became an accidental entrepreneur. And so, yes, as I was trying to find jobs back then, and I was in my mid 40s, couldn't get hired. And it was really strange for me and I didn't think anything of it, didn't think anything like I would today. Mm-hmm. And so I just listened to my heart and to other people and said, you know, a lot of people in this market, you're great at marketing, you're great at PR and community relations. You should just open up your own firm. And next thing you know, I'm like getting a ton of clients coming in. And so I built a 6-figure company and then also took on a business partner who I'd met when I was at Park Meadows, but she was handling some properties and PR for a client of mine. And so, yeah, Lupe and I ended up having a couple of companies together, still in marketing PR, because we had our own, and then we merged, and then we created SecondActWomen, not at the time on the premise of ageism or age bias and all the things. But what led me to SecondActWomen was because in 2018 at 51, I couldn't get a job. I was back in the same. Oh, I need to back up and say what had happened is Lupe and I were both burned out in entrepreneurship. I was always a corporate girl. I loved working. I loved going in. I loved dressing up. I loved all the things. And I searched for a job for probably 5 to 6 months while Lupe and I were still hanging on to not hanging on, but while we still had our company, we both consciously had coupled and said, let's find jobs. So I couldn't find one. And I'd always wanted to have an event company for women. Age had nothing to do with it. It's for women. And so SecondActWomen was born in 2018.
So when you were 51 and you couldn't find a job, and even in your mid 40s, did it dawn on you that part of that reason, a couple of reasons, number one, because you're a Black woman in America, and number two, because of your age at the time, did the age piece really dawn on you that could be a factor?
So interesting. You said something that rarely dawns on me, and that's my color, my race, my ethnicity. That all throughout my career has never been something that was always at the top of my head. Oh, I'm a Black woman. I deserve this, or I'm a Black woman. And I can't believe they didn't hire me because they're Black. That is not the way I was raised. I never looked at race and ethnicity ever. The only times that I did was to try to get my foot in the door too, because later in life, I would put my photo on my resume. And that was because I just wanted to get my foot in the door if they didn't know me. But it had nothing to do with, you better hire me because I'm a Black, or I can't believe.
No, but it didn't dawn on you that you could be.
I know that's not what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you could be actually discriminated against. Because
Yeah,
it didn't dawn on me until I was in my 40s that people might have had biases against me because I was a woman. I'm like, what? That actually happens? So
none of that was ever at play. And it's funny because I just knew that there were quotas probably that had to be met. And if they met me, regardless of my ethnicity, if they met me, and if I could just get the interview, I would win it. Race had nothing to do with it because of my experience and how good I was at my job. Wasn't until I started SecondActWomen that age, still race and ethnicity had nothing to do. And Lupe is Hispanic. We were two peas in a pod. We didn't think that way in life. Until certain things happened in politics, then did we both start thinking those ways in life. So I didn't start thinking about race alongside And I never even thought about me being a woman, frankly, because
Mm-hmm.
I always got my jobs on my accolades, on my international awards in marketing, on who I was. At least that's what I thought. Now, it may have been different as I think about it. For Second Act Women, that came about. Age was the only thing. Still didn't think woman, still didn't think Black. But then I started thinking age. Then I started thinking woman. So it was always age first. I'm hearing from our women that as women over a certain age, they are unable to find jobs. They're unable to get funding. That even though we have a $15 trillion spending authority, so basically we're the backbone of the economy, women are, in particular over 50, by the way, but my organization focuses on women 40, 50, 60 plus because ageism. Well, ageism starts even younger in tech at 35, but ageism starts in our 40s. Yeah, that I just had this aha moment as I was creating this company after hearing, friends that, oh, seems like women would really like a company that's focused on elevating them, helping them with personal professional development, bringing peers together that are experts in various areas to teach to these women how to grow their companies or how to start a company or how to go apply for a job today. And now, fast forward today, how to get through the ATS, how to get through AI. How do you, use certain things, certain tools and resources to land those jobs today? So the company was not based on ageism until Midlife Con #1, which was 2019 when we launched the company officially. Because originally it was just going to be Women's Business Week. It was going to be like a South by Southwest Denver Startup Week mix, and I would take it across the country. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, when we consciously had coupled Guadalupe and I, she was doing her, I was doing me. I asked her, I said, "Do you want to volunteer maybe?" Because I had brought on a bunch of volunteers who believed in this mission of whatever this thing I was building, because I actually didn't know what it was I was building besides we were going to do events. So she said, "I'll give you 20% of my time because, I really want to work for a company." And in fact, that was mid-July. We were having beers. And by January, she called me up and said, "I want to give you 100%. I want in. I want back in. I want to be co-founders again." Because I'd offered that to her a couple of times as I was building this company. So Lupe joined the company as a co-founder, and then she was with the company for 4 years, and now she works for the state. So she found her own second act.
Your tagline of Second Act Women is we're redefining what it means to bloom, and then again in parentheses, which I just love because I think that invites women to think about how this stage of our life, 40s and beyond, is an opportunity to have a whole new bloom. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Second Act Women, and then I want to talk about the PBS special that you were on that ties into that too.
So Second Act Women is based on the foundation of elevating, inspiring, and impacting women. That's a powerful word, impacting women in various ways. And I don't mean necessarily I'm impacting them. I'm giving them the tools, the people, the events, the resources, and all the things for them to have an impact in their own lives. I actually don't say that I'm empowering women because if we were to look up the word empowering, we need to empower ourselves. I'm giving you the inspiration to empower yourself and to move forward. And so, yeah, we are left behind. Women over a certain age are going unseen, unheard, undervalued, all the things. And so when I built the company, the name of the parent company is Bloom Co. Presents, because I felt like I was blooming at the time. I felt like I found my thing. And the funny thing is, I try to have, if I can, flowers, fake ones and real ones. These are real that I got at Trader Joe's the other
Those are
day, because
beautiful.
I do
Yeah.
feel as if we as women are blooming again. Is it an annual that reblooms every year, or is it a perennial?
Perennial.
I always
Perennial.
forget the two. And my
I
mom has
know.
a green thumb. Oh my God. Perennial. I feel like when we come together, there's nothing but power. There's nothing but magic. I can't believe I actually said that. I'm not usually, woo in that way, but there's magic that comes. And so my job, I feel, with the Second Act Women side of the company, Side of Bloom Co. presents. So there's Second Act Women and there's Barbara Brooks Speaks. We're all one in a sense. But my job, I feel like it is to bring women together so they know that they are heard, they are valued, that the experience, the wisdom, the judgment, the critical thinking, the creativity, the innovation, because don't ever tell us that we are not innovative or creative and we can't do. That's my philosophy, is that we can continue, and if anything, it gets better. It just does. It just gets better with life. And so my job with Second Act Women is to be there for women and have also our women be there for one another in the trainings and the tools and resources and the social events and all of the things. But then the Barbara Brooks side of the company, the Barbara Brooks Speaks, so to speak, side of the company is to go into corporations and make sure that they understand and bring my learnings, my tools, my resources, and my speeches and workshops and boot camps to them to share with them and encourage intergenerational teams to love one another, love on one another, and understand each other instead of going into the stereotypes that Gen Xers don't like tech, that Gen Xers are boomers, the okay boomer,
Mm-hmm.
go away.
Mm-hmm.
And the upper millennials are also in this 40 phase,
Mm-hmm.
because they're known as whiners, I guess, and all the things. I like to peel away, going back to the onion, I like to peel away the stereotypes and let folks know that as I'm delivering speeches, I like to fool them and talk about the stereotypes, and I like to bust them. I like to say, are you kidding me? I studied RPG and Fortran in high school. Literally, I did. I like tech. All right. I could tell you how many women and men and they that I know that, regardless of being a certain generation, are into tech or not. Again, keywords, regardless of the generation,
Yeah.
because we're all individuals. My mom is watching YouTube at 86, watching YouTube on Sundays because that's where she could find her church. She's
Mm-hmm.
86.
Yeah.
So I like to crush the stereotypes. My job, I feel like today, is to say to society and managers and workplaces and organizations that when you hire humans over a certain age, it's the best thing you could do is have an intergenerational team, because that's kind of my way of eradicating ageism in the workplace, is saying
Mm-hmm.
have all of us.
Yeah.
Because all the things happens, all the things I just said, the creativity, the innovation, productivity goes up, and what is important to them is bottom line, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what goes up. When
Yeah.
you have DEI, when you have diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I'm in
Yep.
a DEI company
Yep.
focused on ageism. Yeah.
Yeah. And we know that, like, the statistics bear that out. The more diverse that companies are, actually, the more productive and successful they are. And I want to bring together several things that you said there, because I think this is the powerful takeaway, especially for women over 40, is that oftentimes we have forgotten what we have to offer and the strengths and skill sets that we have from life experience in addition to our professional experience. And being in a community of other women around that same phase of life, even if they have different experiences and backgrounds, we can reflect that all back to each other. And so you have built that in the community around Second Act Women. And that also transitions into the work that you're doing in companies to remind them of the importance not only of our generation and the skill sets that we bring, but how all of the generations can work together to utilize each other's strengths. And I've heard you say on the PBS documentary, by the way, that most companies have 4 or 5 generations in the company. And
Yes.
so figuring out how we can each appreciate the skills and strengths that we bring to that. So I love how I know it seems from an outsider's perspective like it just happened so naturally, and I know how hard you have worked on that, because I think we first met when you were getting Second Act
Just
Women
started the
going.
company. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know the intention and love and heartache and tears and blood and sweat and all of that you have put
Lots
into
of
both
that.
of these companies. And it's just beautifully come together. Give us just kind of a quick definition of pro aging, how you define that. And then let's segue into the PBS documentary where you talk about that more too.
Yeah. And something you said is that we have forgotten, by the way, how powerful we are That's why I'm here, is to remind us, for those that also do forget. Because what happens is, and this is what I talked about in the PBS 12, what happens is we have so many outside sources, people, society as a whole. We live in a youth obsessed society. And so that alone will make you shrink, will make you feel less than. And women don't expire. And I need for women to remember that they should not let other people tell them that they are forgotten, or they should go away. They should retire from their jobs. Stop letting people should on them, right? I know life coaches are always saying stop shoulding on yourself. We do have to do that. And I feel like that is another reason why I'm here, is that we're not forgotten ourselves, that we don't forget, but also because, yeah, society wants to say who should be done. I define pro aging as aging out loud, as owning this time in life, as not letting others say to you that you should be over. You've got cosmetics companies that say anti-aging. We're aging. I just aged 37 minutes on here. There's no anti-aging to me.
This hasn't taken years off of your life.
Oh my God, right? Do you see the wrinkles yet from the 37 minutes? So for me, pro-aging is about recognizing that aging is living. Aging is a privilege. Waking up and opening your eyes every morning is a blessing. And so to me, pro-aging means to own this time in life, and don't shy away from the value that your age brings. Don't shy away from sharing your age. I mean, that's okay if you're not comfortable yet, but it's a badge of honor. To me, it's a privilege. I think we just need to own the fact that, sorry, if you are not okay with being 45, 65 because of the number, that is a chapter in your book that you should own. That's pro aging to me. Aging is living. Full stop.
That was a Sunday sermon right there.
Was that like a mic drop?
That was, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Was it sermon?
So, because you have really, I think, taken center stage in this conversation around pro aging, PBS reached out to you to be part of the series that they're doing called Humanize Colorado Women in the Workforce. And you were on episode 1, which I'll link that in the show notes. It was you, Representative Congresswoman Brittany Pedersen, and Yasmin Castillo. And it's such a beautiful and short. It's only like 25 minutes. So I want people to
8
go
minutes
watch
for
it.
me. It's 8 minutes, a piece. And I have to say, what an honor for me it was to not only, be the first one out of the gate of 12 stories that are being told succinctly over every Friday on PBS 12, but to also be with Yasmin, but Representative Brittany Pedersen, who was on the floor in Congress holding her weeks old baby, submitting to Senate or Congress. I can't remember which one because I'm not into politics in that way, but sort of, but not, if you know what I mean. To be, in the same segment with her, because, she had also age bias played a part in her life. Everyone thought she was the intern. Everyone thought that she was, less than, frankly. But yeah, and just to get the call. By the way, this is just how my brain works, because I get this from my mom, who has always helped humans. So how I ended up here really is because of my mother. I just need to take a step back. I was raised by a mother who had always helped. She always gave her last dollar. My brother and I didn't even know until later in life that my mom was making sure that Keith and I had a warm meal in the morning while she was not eating, because she was trying to keep our home over her head, because my dad didn't want to pay the $100 child support for 2 kids. And so that's a whole nother story. So fast forward to today, when I got the call And I thought the call from Mary Latsis, who is someone that I've known for quite some time, she's the executive producer of PBS 12 now, and it was a new position for her. I thought she was calling to get names of women that I would recommend for this series. And as I'm cutting her up, saying, "I've got women. Are you kidding me? I have," and I'm starting to name off women. She goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm calling to say I want you to be a part of this. Sure, I'll take those names, but I'm calling to actually ask you to be a part of this series because that's just how I've always rolled. And I'm always thinking about other people because that's how I was raised. And so, yeah, to get the call and not recognize in the moment how powerful of a series this was until after I did my due diligence and researched Humanize, this series that they started with mayoral candidates in Colorado, in Denver, because there were over 15 candidates. And the producers at the time, back then, however many, 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, they came up with this series to humanize people, to humanize. So just let's not just talk about politics and why you're going for to be the mayor of one of the largest cities in America. Find out why and who you are, kind of what we're doing here today on your podcast. So fast forward, yeah, I was honored. I went into studio, did a big interview, was able to give honor to my mother and talk about her and how I, as a human being, have come to be. And yeah, talk about my mission and talk about my purpose and talk about how important it is that I get the message out alongside my peers who are doing the same thing to, re-script and reframe what aging is today. Because I've been doing it since 2018. There's only not been very many of us in this world of talking. I mean, even now, and this has nothing to do with Second Act Women or me, but I find it really fascinating and fun that now celebrities are even coming out talking about menopause. Halle Berry, she has a new menopause company.
Yep.
Everybody now, over the last few years, I think just are starting to recognize their power and starting to say,
you know why?
yeah.
It's because, and notice, we're all Gen Xers. The people who are pushing
Boom,
these conversations
we're
forward
fighters.
are all Gen Xers. I saw a meme the other day. It was something about menopause or
That makes
something.
sense.
And it's like, it's because the Gen X women are like, we're not taking this shit laying down. We're going to do something about it. And so we have,
I can't wait to use that. That makes sense. That
yes.
makes complete sense because we were
Yeah.
latchkey kids. We were used to doing things on our own. I was a latchkey kid without a key because we used to keep the door unlocked.
Same. There was no key. You just walked in the front door.
Okay. But we're latchkey kids. I'm used to coming home. You're probably used to coming home, turning on Little Rascals or Lucy. I love Lucy's show or Leave It to Beaver. All the
Bewitched. Yep.
Bewitched, Flintstones were my jam. All of that, ABC Sunday, Thursday, remember the ABC
After school special.
after school specials,
Yep.
Saturday morning cartoons, it's all the things, so God, we really do have a really great generation.
We do. And because of that, we are like, especially around menopause conversations, and I'll have to have you back because there's so many other conversations.
Well, I'll have it.
We'll have the menopause conversation. You shared so beautifully on the PBS special about your mom having a stroke in 2023 and being her caregiver, which is a position so many Gen Xers are finding themselves in now. So being a caregiver and an entrepreneur, that's a lot to juggle. So we'll have to have you back to talk about all of that.
And on top of that, Michelle, I'm also a solo ager.
That was one of the other threads I wanted to pull on. And then I want to go through some statistics from the PBS documentary and get your reaction to some of these. How define for me solo aging? So that's a new phrase.
It is a new phrase and it is a thing. I learned about it at a conference, the American Society on Aging. I was speaking there. I was on a panel there with another woman she's a boomer, a former attorney, but always an attorney, once an attorney, always.
No. Hey, now I don't know that I'm.
Because you're an attorney. I'm just sorry that you earned it. You are always going to be an attorney, okay, girl? You earned that right to say that. But anyway, so I learned about this term last year, and there are a lot of companies that are focused on us now. They are people like you and me who are booming Gen X millennials, as I like to say, who are single with no kids. That is a solo ager. And there are plenty of companies that recognize that there are so many of us that have chosen or otherwise not to have children or haven't had children at a certain age, that are also still single, that are living the lives that we want to live, that are not being dictated to us by whomever. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this has not been a choice that I'm single. Don't know if I ever would have had kids. I've never yearned to have children, but I love kids. I've always been a good babysitter. Dogs and kids, we're the men, but dogs and kids are always attracted to me. So there's that. But yeah,
I
there's my
resonate
man.
with all of that. Yeah. Um,
So that's who you are, and that's who we are.
yeah. And the solo aging, different, I think, from the focus on women who don't have children, whether they're childless, not by choice, or child free, which are two different things. That tends to focus more on women. Solo aging applies to men, women, binary,
That's
LGBTQ
right.
plus, like it applies to everyone. And so I appreciate the kind of all encompassing nature of that phrase.
Well, and can I tell you
Yeah.
why it is? Why there's now there's a thing called the longevity economy. So there are companies that are focused on humans like us that are solo agers, and there's YouTube channels. Mine kind of follows the life of me being a solo ager, is because what so many of us have not had children at this age, that
Hmm.
we are creating a new world out there. 1 in 3 people in America today, guess how old they are? They are over 50. Then in 5 years, 1 in 5 people will be over 65. And then you've got Zennials who aren't having kids, or I shouldn't say aren't having kids, but they are choosing, and millennials, to have kids later in life, as a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends had babies in their late 30s and even early to mid 40s. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Gen Xers alone make up 65 million people I think just in the United States
I
itself.
mean, we're the
So it's a big,
smallest generation
yeah,
out there, but we're still
we're,
mighty.
we're mighty. We're mighty. So we have just a few minutes left, and I wanted to hit on some of the statistics that the PBS documentary touched on and get your reaction and sort of what can we do about these statistics. And a lot of the documentary focuses on a 2024 report called Women in the Workplace report. And it's the biggest report data wise that's ever been done like this. It's from over 1,000 companies, over 480,000 people participated in this survey. And some of the eye opening statistics for me that I heard from that, and I'll link to a PR Newswire article in the show notes that talked about the report. But the documentary mentioned that for every 100 men promoted, 81 women are promoted, and that women make up only 29% of C suite. I then went and did some more research because what the documentary didn't talk about, but the report does talk about, is that women of color represent 7% of C suite positions. So Black, Asian, Latina women. And they mentioned a little bit in the report the LGBTQ plus community and women with disabilities, but they mentioned it in the context of they're more likely to experience microaggressions. I didn't see what percentage, if any, they make up of C suite. And so the shocking statement from the report is, let's see if I can find the quote. First of all, is that it will take women of color nearly 48 years to reach parity compared to 22 years for white women. And so what they say in the report is that we are nearly 50 years away from reaching parity for all women in corporate America. Now, that was in September of 2024. God knows how much that number has been adjusted upward based on current events.
Or lied about because of her. Yes. Yes.
So my question to you, or a couple of questions, is what is it that you think Gen Xers in particular, so people 45 to 60, what is it that they bring to the workplace? And also, what is it that they are bringing to small businesses? Because we're seeing a good percentage of small businesses who are people in our generation. So, what is it that you think we bring to the workplace and we bring to the small business economy?
So I'm going to give you another stat when it comes to entrepreneurship. 1,821 businesses a day are started by women. That was a 6 or 7 years ago. That stat was, so it's got to be much higher. And of that, 1,200 were started by women over 40. We are the ones who are leaving on our own accord because we want to be our own bosses, or we're leaving because we're being pushed out. Let me give you another stat too. Less than 2% of funding is given to women
Yep.
in VC world.
Yep.
That it's like 0.000001 is given to BIPOC, brown and black women. So now what was your question again?
That's okay. I love the statistics.
I love stats, but what was your question?
What are the strengths and skill
Oh, the
sets
strengths.
that you think we bring both to the workplace and to small business and the entrepreneur world?
It's the critical thinking. It's the think about how we didn't have so much machinery back in the day. That if you think about critical thinking, when you're hiring someone who is a boomer or a Gen Xer or a millennial in their 40s, we've had to do a lot of this. We've had to not pull things up on AI and get answers like that. So the critical thinking that we bring is common sense. And common sense is another thing that we bring. There is the judgment that we bring. There is the wisdom, the idea that we've been there, done that. So if we've made errors in our jobs before and have learned to correct them.
I think the lesson there is that, yeah, like as we say in Nebraska, we just know how to get her done. Like we can just get in, dig in, and get her done. And I think that's a huge strength that we need to remember. Yeah, whether we're in the corporate world or we're in the small business world. So I know we're coming up on time. I will, by the time this episode airs, your Midlife Con will have already happened on April 25th and 26th, but you do this every year. So I'll make sure to include that in the show notes, some more information on that. So yeah, you'll have a special offer, which is a free download that they can just sign up to be on your email list. It's the ultimate resource list for women over 40. And then I'll link, of course, in the show notes, every place that people can find you, how they can follow you, learn more about Midlife Con, and see you on the PBS series. And before we go, do you have just a time for a quick lightning round, or do you need to jet?
Yeah.
All right. So let's do it quick. Rapid fire. Fondest Gen X childhood memory.
So many. My gosh, I had such, even though I had mentioned that I was raised to a single mother, man, she made life great for Keith and I. Fondest, is it getting a waterbed for the first time? Or is it wearing, or is it, the boom box? Is it the carnivals that would come to our neighborhood? Is it the fashions? Is it listening to being first to get HBO or cable delivered to my, girl? Are you kidding me? Is it watching MTV for the first time and watching the Michael Jackson 20-minute, I'm exaggerating, video movie? So
I think it was about 20 minutes.
All of those things. Yes. I have so many amazing memories. Is it making ice cream from snow? The first snow?
Mm-hmm.
Literally the ice cream maker.
This is like a commercial for growing up Gen X. It's like its own after school special.
Is it fashion plates?
Oh God, yes. I played with those too. And the little spirograph things. Mm-hmm.
What was that?
I think it was just called spirograph.
It probably was.
Yeah.
It's all the things. It's all the things. That is unfair, Michelle.
Sorry. So sorry. Especially two people with distraction issues to ask and narrow it down to one thing. I should know better. What's your biggest piece of advice for other Gen Xers who are going through aging issues?
Don't you let anybody tell you can't do whatever the heck you want to do. Do not. And I know that is something that people say all the time, but I really mean it. I really mean it. Do not let anybody tell you can't start that company because you're too old, finger quotes. Don't let anybody tell you can't go for that job because you may not have all the qualifications. Well, guess what? You know what men are doing? Men are applying for jobs. So they only meet 50% of the qualifications, but they're applying. I hear that all the time from recruiters. My female recruiters are saying, ladies, you need to do the same. So don't let anybody tell you can't, because we're going to be there. As I said in the PBS thing, we really will be there to watch you, because more innovation and businesses, successful businesses and successful careers, they happen now. They happen now.
Yep. Do you have a Gen X era theme song for your life?
Girl, again, considering many songs and music, and you ask me that now as
I
I'm
know.
creating my own playlist, another playlist, maybe it too will be 35 hours, Michelle. Girls just want to have fun. I don't
Mm,
know, because I love me some Cindy.
hmm
I can't wait to pose that question inside of my Facebook community. I
I
don't have
love
an
it. Do
answer
it. Do
because
it.
there's so many. And also because I have ADHD, officially 2 years ago told that at any time, whichever mood I'm bringing or whichever Barbara I'm bringing, I could have a theme song for every moment in my in my
I
life,
feel the same.
for
My
every
whole day
quarrel.
is broken up into morning is like the happy wake up music. Afternoon is chill.
Boom.
I need the ambient music to process. Evening is like the wind down. It's a whole thing. Yeah, that's why the playlist
Good
is
on you.
36 hours. Yeah.
Good
You can
on you. What is
yeah, I've
yours?
had people do that. Like if I had to just pick one song on it's actually probably It Takes Two by Rob Bass. Just
It takes
because
two to be.
I can go right. I know all the lyrics, all the words.
Oh
I
my
could lip
God, I
sync the
love
shit
it.
out of that song. Yeah. All right. I will let you go because I know you have other things that you have to get to. Thank you so much for spending the time this morning. And I can't wait to share your wisdom and all of your links in the PBS special with other people. So
Thank you. And anything for you, Michelle.
that was an amazing journey through some Gen X memories, through the experience of being more pro aging, and also understanding what solo aging is. A newer concept that we're hearing about that for so many people, like Barbara and myself, is important to remember that just because we're not married or we don't have kids doesn't mean that we've lost any value. We cannot listen to the messages that society is giving us about how we lose value because we hit a certain age or because we're a certain gender or we're a certain race or we have or haven't done a certain thing. As Barbara said, don't let anybody tell you you can't. So, what's one thing that you can do today after listening to this awesome conversation with Barbara? What's one thing that you can do today to take a step toward doing something that other people have told you you can't? I want you to reflect on that. Share your responses in the comments wherever you're listening, on the website, in the show notes. Remember to check out all the show notes, grab Barbara's download, get on her email list. Trust me, you're going to want to see what she sends out. Thanks so much for helping me kick off season 2. We're in for a wild ride this season. Remember to send me an email at podcast@lifefromthesummit.com if you have any questions or reflections you want to share. Rate, leave a review, and please, please, please keep sharing the podcast to help it get out there. And let's blow this sucker up in season 2. And until next time, stay gold, Gen Xers.